Hi, everyone. I'm Jamie Vaughn with How She Got There and Next In podcast. And today we have a very special guest, Jully Kim. I'm going to read this title because it's very impressive. Senior Director of Engineering Practices and Enablement and the Chief of Staff to the Head of Engineering at Zendesk. Hi, Jully. How are you?
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Oh, well, we're excited to have you here. I have been following you on LinkedIn for a while. Love just your happiness and your infectiousness of what you do and how excited you are to be there. And I think that says a lot for someone who, can come out and go, I love my job. And so I
Yeah.
was like, I have to have her on the podcast. I have to talk to her. I want her to spread that infectiousness of happiness to our viewers. So I always love to ask, where did you grow up and what did you think you were going to be when you grew up?
I actually live in my hometown now. I grew up in Albany, California, which is next to Berkeley.
Okay.
Um, After I had kids, I was like, I have to go back to my hometown. I have to live there. I love it. It's a small town in Big Bay Area. But when I was younger, I wanted to be a high school chemistry teacher.
Okay.
I was very set on being a high school chemistry teacher. I did all the science Olympiads. I ran all the science projects in middle school and high school. Um, I went to undergrad at Berkeley studying chemistry, and my singular goal was to be a high school chemistry teacher. Um, After I graduated, and of course, there were no jobs, even in teaching at the time. So I joined a consulting firm and I worked for Accenture for a number of years doing program and product management. And I was like, enough of this. I still want to be a high school chemistry teacher. So I quit my job, went to grad school at Berkeley, got my master's in education, and I taught high school chemistry at Casterly High School in the Bay Area.
Uh-huh. And how did that lead you to going into technology then?
I get this question all the time because they're like, how's your background lead you to your job here? Um, I, um, while I was teaching, I actually got sick in the middle of the year.
Uh-huh.
And I needed to quit in order to get better. And
Mhm.
so I still needed a job. And so a friend of mine was like, why don't you come and join my startup and answer help desk calls? You're going to quit and go back to work when this academic semester starts anyways. And I was like, yes, I need money. I will go do that. And when I got there, like a couple of days after it started, the CTO of the company was like, you have 5 years of project management. Come be our technical project manager. It was a brand new startup. And he, like straight out of a movie, slid me salary on the back of like a post-it or a napkin. And it was double my teaching salary. And I was like, well, I could do this for a little bit. And I ended up staying at that company for 8 years. And that was kind of the beginning of my introduction into a world of tech.
Okay. So with those jobs, how did you end up at Zendesk then?
Yeah, I was at that company for solid 8 years doing project management, all sorts of technical project management.
Mhm.
While I was at that company, we decided to embark on changing our development practices to really um, move from more waterfall development to an agile framework. And I got some training and I leaned into that and I was like, what? This is incredible. Why don't all companies do this? And it turns out actually every other company does except for us. Um, but I really became an evangelist for thinking about agile transformations. Um, and I ended up going to a bunch of other companies, focusing on program management, technical program management, but really championing agile product development in those companies. But the thing about agile transformations that is most interesting to me is not necessarily procedural, like here are the sprints and the number of story points that go in the sprint and make sure that you can validate the things that are coming out of the sprint. It was more interesting to me to think about the culture around how people work and building trust in order to be able to work more collaboratively so that they can build in a more agile way. And um, that just became more and more interesting to me. I wanted to know, how do we build better relationships, and like both from executives and their stakeholders to the actual teams, between team members themselves, team members and other dependent teams. And when I was looking for a new role, I expected that I would be finding a similar kind of role as like an agile coach, as a program lead. Um, and I stumbled upon a role here at Zendesk, which is the chief of staff to the head of engineering. And a really good friend of mine, I asked him, who was the CISO at this time, I was like, what do you think about this role? And they were like, Julie, you would do great. And I was like, okay, I will only take this job if the executive is legit. Like, what do you think?
Mhm.
And the most important thing that I heard from that friend was Zendesk is a company who cares about people. And I was like, tell me more. And I went through the interview process and I realized that the role in particular was a program manager role of sorts, given my background of like 15 years of having done that. But it was a role that focused in on leadership operations
Mhm.
and sort of scaling organizational operations for the entire engineering organization. And the overwhelming value that I got through that interview and has been my experience for the last 4.5 years that I've been at Zendesk is that we care about the people who build the technology for our
Mhm.
customers.
Mhm.
And that is really why I love doing, it's seeming boring operations work, but no, it's for the humans that are actually building the technology for our customers.
Mhm.
And, my particular organization, I have a distributed team all around the world. Um, Engineering practice enablement, a long mouthful of a title, but we focus in on engineering onboarding, digital first, university programs, recruiting programs, mentoring, development conversations for our engineering organization. Like I mentioned, all the leadership operations and executive assistants, all the engineering events like our Tech Summit, Grace Hopper, International Women Training Day. I'm an advisor for Women Engineering Organization, ERGs. So thinking about all of the functions that enable engineering to scale is
Mhm.
sort of where I've landed now and is my most um, it's like the favorite part of my job is like impacting the humans that are building the technology for our customers.
Yeah. How do you do two jobs there? Both of those seem like massive things.
I just care about a lot of things. I think that's probably my downfall and my benefit, but I have a fantastic team. I have two directors on my team who focus in on a lot of those operations for in support of the organization, and then a fabulous team of executive assistants who support all of our engineering leadership. And without an incredible team, there would be no way we'd be able to like accomplish all of that.
Mhm. Completely understand. Um, so how do you also do that and balance that family life as well? I know sometimes we always think women can have it all. Is it one of those things where you can have it all, or can you have it all at different times?
Yeah, I also realized there's a garbage truck passing by. I don't know if you could hear that.
I thought somebody was
Right?
coming in the door here. It's fine.
Amazing.
That's life.
Um, yeah, I have two girls, 9 and 12. I think they just had their birthday. So, yes, 9 and 12. I'm super active in schools,
Mhm.
partly because of my own background as an educator. I'm a classroom parent. I'm the VP of our PTA. I volunteer at the snack cart at the middle school. Both the girls are involved in music and after school activities. And folks are like, how do you have your job and manage the life that you have with your family? Um, I I have two things that are in my favor. One is I have the most amazing parents, and we moved closer to my parents to help me. And it would not be possible for me to have my career without the support of my parents. They come, they help me get the lunches ready in the morning. They help me drop off the kids. They help pick up the kids when they need to. Um, they remind me that I need to go do the reading assignment, babysit them when they're needed. I'm so fortunate to have my parents' support. And I
Mhm.
know that that's a luxury that not all moms or families have, but that is one of the things that I'm so incredibly grateful for. The other thing that I think, particularly since the pandemic, I'm a fully remote employee. I work out of my girl's bedroom. The closet is behind me. And I think the line between work and family gets more and more blurry.
Mhm.
And I didn't do a good job of this before, but a skill that I've learned more recently is having better boundaries
Mhm.
between work and a home. And in some cases, it's actually okay where it's blurred, where I can take a call from the van on my way to dropping off the girls at Flute. That's an advantage I have. But
Mhm.
sometimes I recognize that I'm being a cranky mom toward my kids when I'm stressed at work. And I have to put both like physical space boundaries. I have to put better time boundaries. Like I have a reminder on my calendar at 6 p.m. that says must stop working. And sometimes I have to have like emotional boundaries too, where I have to tell my kids, I'm not available for you right now, but I will be fully available for you after I get through this call. So
Mhm.
there's like better boundaries that I need to put in um, to make sure that I can be present for the things that I care about.
I think that's great. Sometimes I look up and it's 7 o'clock and I'm like, oh my
Yeah.
goodness, yeah, completely understand that. So, what are some of the greatest career lessons that you've learned through all of this?
Oh, I think one of the most important ones is how to advocate for yourself.
Hmm.
I didn't realize, especially early on in my career, that work is not like school. School is you study hard or not, but you study hard, you take a test, and you get sort of rated or judged against an objective scale. Like you
Hmm.
either got a 79, you got an 81, you got a 62 or 100% on your test, and they merit you based on that value.
Hmm.
Work is not like that. And I think as a woman in particular, it's definitely not like that. There are stereotypes, there's biases, there's all sorts of politics, there's all history of what was before you even joined and maybe happening all around you. And I thought that if I just work hard, do my job, keep my head down, and just, stay the course, that somebody will recognize that I'm doing a great job and somebody will promote me, somebody will give me a salary raise. Like I expected that as
Right.
part of my
I get
um
that. Hmm.
yeah, like it's part of
Yeah.
my career experience. But work is not like that. And you and I
Right.
both have probably experienced that a ton, right? The thing that I've learned the most is have like an important part of my career and my role and my job is to advocate for myself.
Hmm.
And I wanted to share one tip that super easy, very basic, but has been the number one tool for me to be able to advocate for myself in the last 20 years. And I call this bring the receipts. Every week, I write down a list of my accomplishments.
Hmm.
Every Friday, I have a little calendar window. I have a link to my Google Doc, and I list out all the things that I accomplished that week. And the reason why that has been so important is when we have your annual review or every 6 month review, they say, write your self eval. What did you accomplish this
Right.
quarter, half year? And you're like, I don't know. I did something awesome. I know I did a lot of good work
Yeah.
and you can't remember.
Hmm.
And you kind of dig through some projects, you dig through your calendar a bit. But having a weekly log of everything that I've accomplished as a running log has been the most powerful tool that I've been able to use to
Yeah.
show, oh, you want to know what I did this quarter? Let me tell you. And I
Hmm.
can just rattle off the 15 big projects, all the things that were not part of my scope that were added, things that I did last minute, things, extra kudos that I got from folks, um, big projects that were unexpected, um, like turns that I course corrected and got to success. All of those don't seem big at the time, but I have like a weekly log of them that when I look at them in aggregate, I can show and tell a better story of
Yeah.
the work that I've done and have accomplished. So being a better advocate for myself and going after roles and opportunities and asking for roles and opportunities that I wouldn't have known otherwise myself
Hmm.
has probably one of the biggest career lessons, both in my early career and even now as I'm sort of like figuring out what's next.
Yeah. Yesterday we were at a Girls in Tech conference here in Nashville, and it was women who were 20 to 40 years into their careers, all talking to these younger women in technology. And I'm sitting there with one of my coworkers, hitting her with my elbow every time they said, advocate for yourself, find a mentor, find a sponsor who will speak up for yourself, keep
Yeah,
notes of what you did. And
yeah,
I was like, that is what I've been telling you to do. Sit at the table, have a voice, volunteer your voice up first. And I, give examples of myself too, of early in my career. I thought exactly like you did. Put your head down and work and you'll be rewarded
Yeah.
for it. And luckily, I did have a couple of bosses that were really great about that because my job involved numbers and they could look at the numbers and
Mm,
see that I did
yeah.
more work. But when it comes to jobs that the numbers are taken away, you really do have to keep that list. And at my current company, Next Level, they really are sticklers on what are your goals for the week and what did you accomplish
Mm,
at the end of the week. And then they do quarterly reviews. I barely had yearly reviews with past companies because people get so busy. So I've been here 8 months now, and I've had two quarterly reviews. And I learned after the first one, I better keep a list of what I do.
yeah.
It comes in handy because they do wanna know, and they want everyone to succeed in that way,
Right.
and so, like, I don't even think about it, I just do it, and to me, it might not seem like it's a big deal, but to them, it does because they don't see that every day of what you have your hands in. So that's great advice. I really do love, saying to be an advocate for yourself.
Yeah. And I think also folks sometimes feel timid about advocating for themselves
Yeah.
because it's not something that comes natural or is taught, at least not taught to me as a woman about how to
Yeah.
advocate for myself. And it's something that I had to learn how to do. And a good way to start is by just writing down your accomplishments. And the other way is practice. So we have a mantra in the Kim household, which is, how do you get good at something? Like you
Mhm.
practice. It's like,
Mhm.
I don't know how to do my math worksheet. It's like, well, how do you get good at math? You practice. Like, I don't know how to do this flute piece. And I'm like, well, how do you get good at something? And they're like, we practice. So I think that's the same with advocating for yourself. It feels, and it can feel daunting if it's something that you don't have practice or haven't been trained or have experience doing,
Mhm.
but you find a buddy and you practice. Say, give me feedback. Does this sound like an authentic representation of me? Not like in some weird, power grabbing way, but is this an
Right.
authentic way of representing who I am and what I want next?
Mhm. Yep. That's
Yeah.
great. So, how do you think that we get more women involved in tech? I think so many times we think that tech is sitting in a corner with a hoodie on, coding, and it really is so much more than that. I think that hopefully with these types of things, like with this podcast, we're opening that door to show people that it isn't all the technical side, but everything has a bit of tech in it. Um,
Yeah.
what do you think we need to do to get more women involved in that or say STEM careers?
Yeah, for sure. A couple of years ago, when it was still in person, I attended Grace Hopper Celebration, which is the largest women's technical conference. And I was completely blown away. There was like 10,000 women technologists in one place. And I stood up on the balcony, actually took a picture because I was trying to communicate to my husband what this looks like.
Mhm.
10,000 women technologists in one place.
Wow.
And that's just like the AMER conference. Grace Hopper
Uh-huh.
has APAC and EMEA conferences. But it was so eye-opening. I was like, there is actually a disconnect between our ability to get women into tech versus all of this available talent. And so
Mhm.
I think that getting more women in tech is actually two-pronged. Um, First, I feel like there are actually a ton of women already in tech. And I
Mhm.
feel like we have to
Absolutely.
tell their stories a lot better and louder. For example,
Mhm.
podcasts like this, where when women see other women in leadership roles or doing things adventurous or entrepreneurial, they see themselves naturally from a view of representation. And I think there's a responsibility that we have to be able to tell our stories and inspire and
Mhm.
share both from an accomplishments perspective, but also a lot of our own failures and
Mhm.
how the things we've learned from those failures and setbacks and how that has enabled us to figure out what to do next.
Right.
Um, but I also think that there's a huge responsibility on our non-female counterparts and sponsors to be able to help advocate and push for us.
Mhm.
I've every single job that I've ever had, I have had an incredible sponsor,
Mhm.
and um, that person gave me opportunities that I didn't know about. That person put my name on things that I didn't wasn't feeling that confident about. And they were like, you did this, you own this, you should
Mhm.
present, or you should do this. And I really benefited from the experience of those individuals
Right.
who, in some cases, almost ceded their own rights to be able to own or present or lead a thing and gave me the opportunity.
Mhm.
And that was incredibly powerful for me to understand how valuable the role of a sponsor is. And now, um, we ask when we ask for sponsors, we are very clear about what that responsibility is, because I think that there are folks who want to be sponsors, but don't exactly know what that means. So I
Right.
think that there's a part where we need to educate and say, this is what we need for you to do for us. When
Mhm.
there's an opportunity, don't default to the person who has the most experience. Think about it from a diversity lens. How can we have more women speakers? How can we have more women leaders on this opportunity? At least 50%, come on, right? Like at least. And
Yeah.
asking questions of our sponsors and leaders to make sure that they're better educated about the decisions that they can make. So I think it's two-pronged. I think it's folks who are already in those roles, women in
Mhm.
tech, telling their stories louder and more far-reaching. Um, and then also having our non-female counterparts advocating and understanding the value of having women in those roles
Right.
and pushing the sort of systemic
Mhm.
pieces to encourage and make it easier for women to be in those roles.
Yeah, very, very true. I'm very grateful for sponsors that I've had that have spoken up and said, "Yeah, I know
Yeah,
somebody has no experience, but Jamie right here, this is the way she thinks, and I think that that might be something that could change that position for something better." So
yeah,
I try to do that now myself when I see
same.
somebody that I really do think could do a really good job at something that maybe out of the box for them,
Yeah.
and I think it's so important. Very much so. So, as we wrap up this interview, would love for you to tell me what inspires you. And it can be anything.
Yeah. There are two things that actually inspire me.
Okay.
Um, One of them is my two girls.
Mhm.
I, they're in fourth grade and seventh grade now. Yeah, school just
Mhm.
started. Seventh grade now. And I see them i- interacting with the world in a different way than I did, right? All of them are pros at their phones and their iPads, and I'm always like, install this app for me. Like, I don't know, and how do you, like they are far more engrossed in that world. And I I want to create a world where they don't have to work through the same difficult challenges that our generation had to figure out.
Right.
So
Right.
I'm invested in figuring out how to get more women talent into engineering and technical roles. I want more opportunities for women speakers at conferences and
Mhm.
panels. Um, when I speak at a conference, I'll take a photo on stage and I'll send it to my girls, and I'm like, no big deal, more women speakers. And I just want to show them that it's like a normal thing that they should see, um,
Right.
that there are women leaders and women technical speakers and folks who are sharing their story, so that it normalizes that activity, that they don't feel like they have to sort of break into it, but that it's
Mhm.
an opportunity that they should expect and can go after.
Mhm.
Um, The other inspiration that I have is, related to the fact that I'm a gardener. That's probably the most important thing to know
Oh,
about me is I'm a gardener. I'm a succulent gardener. I have over 1,000 plus unique varieties of plants that I grow and tend to. They're both my therapy and my escape. I absolutely love them.
well,
And,
I'm
um,
impressed.
and succulents are really slow growers. They can be finicky, and my plants give me a lot of inspiration about thinking how to be a better manager, about a better person,
Mhm.
um, about what the uniqueness of each individual succulent forces me to think about each individual unique person on my team in the engineering organization, the different needs of each of the succulents, the different ways, some need more light, some need more fertilizer, some need more water. And just the uniqueness of every single one helps me appreciate the diversity of the people that I work with.
Mhm.
Um, and gives me a lot of inspiration and investing in the future and like figuring out how to think about what my future garden will look like. And so those are two big inspirations for me.
I love it. Well, Julie, thank you so much for taking time today and talking to us here at How She Got There. I cannot wait to see where your career goes next.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for having me.